Hey, how's it going everyone? Let's talk about the current state of Tree of Savior. If you have played Tree of Savior since its launch, especially if you've played the game near the launch and near the open and closed beta in the beginning of 2016, you have to agree that in most parts that game was shit. Fun, cutesy, but shit. Now, how's the game in 2017? We're going to discuss the pros and cons of the current state of the game. Some things are better, some things are worse. Let's check it out. The pros. The game style and art. Something that has been real since day one is that the game art is really cool. Good looking scenes, good looking sprites, cute sprites, even though they're childish and over sexualized most of the time, like everything that comes from South Korea. But still, an awesome 2D style. And most of the time is a really good soundtrack too, even though they do get away with being a little too techno for my taste. There's a little too much electronic music for the game environment, which can be thought of from two perspectives. Considering that Tree of Savior is a very grind-centric game where you're going to be killing things constantly, having electronic music constantly pumping you into doing a mindless grind is okay, but at the same time I believe that these kinds of games with more of a high fantasy style should focus on music that give you the feeling of where you are, the cities, the people, nature, forests, whatever, hell, I don't know, but songs that show you what's going on and help you get a feeling of the world, and not just high pumping music to keep you killing things fast. So in my opinion, soundtrack is both a pro and a con. Gameplay variety. It's undeniable that Tree of Savior has a shit ton of classes, too many classes, and I really believe that there is a lot of customization possible. You can have a high DPS class with tanking abilities, you can have a high utility DPS mage with a lot of health, or a high utility DPS mage glass cannon. You can have really high damage dealing clerics, or really support focused clerics, even though nowadays support focused clerics also deal a lot of damage, but there is variety. The spell animations, attack animations, and monsters also look pretty cool, and the fact that killing blows on creatures and bosses make them explode give an extra pleasure when you destroy a mob and it explodes and flies all over the screen. The fact that the game is actually improving. Game optimization regarding hardware requirements, frame rate, lag, and that kind of stuff is actually being done, is actually improving, which is awesome. That's a point that has been key since the beginning, getting laggy, low frame rates in the cities. When you have a lot of people in the same channels, the game gets laggy, and that has improved a lot. Even though it's not perfect yet, it's getting better. Changes in the experience system. So in Tree of Savior, you get less experience when you kill mobs. They are way higher level or way lower level than your character. But that has been changed to increase the level difference, meaning you can kill things of lower level and higher levels up to a certain point, allowing more variety than the game used to have. The experience gotten from dungeons and daily missions and that kind of stuff was also improved, which is pretty cool, which means you have to spend less time grinding out of dungeons and missions. And there's an update coming soon that will lead to a more equal distribution of dungeons per level. A new dungeon will open every 30 levels. That update is not on International Tree of Savior yet, but since it was already released in KTOS, I think it's worth to talk about it. Which leads to more leveling variety. Nowadays you can level characters by grinding, by questing and getting XP cards, by doing daily missions, by doing daily dungeons, by doing the events that IMC constantly adds to the game. Even though, okay, sometimes the events are not focused on leveling, but sometimes they are, and they are just amazing. So yeah, currently you have a little bit more variety in regards to how to level characters than there used to be in the beginning of the game. No pay to win. Some people like to say that Tree of Savior is a pay to win game, but the aspects that make Tree of Savior pay to win in the optics of those people are what would make any game pay to win. If you put money in the game, you can get stronger. If you buy silver from other players and purchase items, you get stronger. That's obvious. If someone that plays the game gets a shit ton of silver and buys things, they will also get stronger. I believe that pay to win, by definition, is people who pay things in the game with real life money get things that are impossible for non-real money paying players to achieve. So, if you use real money, you get to a level that a player that doesn't use real money is unable to achieve, and that is not true in Tree of Savior. If you put $5,000 in Tree of Savior, you will get silver and items. If a player puts 5,000 hours in Tree of Savior, he will get silver and items. Tree of Savior is not pay to win. Another little detail is that many trading restrictions were removed from the game. I believe that IMC is, as time goes by, actually listening to what the community is saying and improving certain aspects of the game. Sometimes we're even getting code from add-ons added to the actual game to improve the player experience by requests and demand from the community. But now that we're talking about IMC responding to feedback, I think it's a good point to go and talk about the cons. What is bad about Tree of Savior? Even though the game hardware requirements, FPS issues, server lag and that kind of stuff has improved, it's still not perfect. It's still kind of far from perfect when you think about the fact that the game doesn't have such a high population. The game shouldn't lag like crazy and drop below 10 FPS when you get into a city and you have 30 people on your screen. That shouldn't happen. Another point is that IMC took too long to care. IMC took too long to address issues that were directly impacting the game. Their resistance to address issues and to communicate with the international audience has made the player base in international servers drop from a peak of 50,000 people on game launch to currently, as of March 2017, a daily peak of 5,000, 4,000 people on international servers, which is not terrible if you take in consideration that the Southeast Asia, Japan and Korean servers also have their own player bases, which are not counted on the Steam charts. Those are pretty average numbers for MMOs, but in Tree of Savior they are not enough. I leveled solo, mostly, until max level 330, and I found it really hard to get consistent parties to beat endgame PvE areas like Earth Tower and 300 level maps, and was only able to actually do most content when it was soloable. And some of that stuff was really hard to do. Like the 317 quest to get Kryptonian is something most people can do solo. I managed to solo it, but it was hard as fuck. And I think that you can only thoroughly enjoy the parts that you can do solo. If you depend on parties, you're gonna get fucked. Which leads me to talk about guilds. The guild system in Tree of Savior is weird because you need a specific class to create a guild, and The amount of people that can fit in a guild is really limited. This means that a server will have a handful of guilds and they will have a low amount of players. This means that people of similar power will be distributed amongst different guilds. There are no guilds with 200 members, which is something you can see in other games, which means that most of the time when you are a beginner Earth Tower player, you won't be able to consistently get a party in your guild, and people from different guilds don't usually talk to each other in most MMOs. So it creates, the game mechanics themselves create a difficult system for you to find people to play together. And since we're talking about strength, there's also the point of game balance. The most powerful you can be in TOS right now is rank 8, which is enabled at level 280 or something like that. And the rank 8 classes are really broken and powerful. I personally believe that rank 8 classes should be more powerful than the lower ranked classes, but I have to be completely honest. A rank 8 class will have a base damage of like 10,000, when a rank 7 class has a base damage of 1,000, and it's just too much of a difference. It's too much of a difference. You can't compare a rank 8 character to a rank 7 character, you just can't. This creates problems because when you party as a level 270 with a character at level 310, he's way more powerful than you can be, unless you have a shit ton of money. And that's a little bad, because in a game with a low population, having big power difference between small level differences is really bad. It creates a cruel unbalance, which is felt mostly in PvP, but I personally felt it a lot in PvE. Another complicated point about TOS is the linearity. I already talked to you about how experience changes allowed players to have more possibilities when leveling new characters, but the most efficient way of leveling new characters is still doing missions, because daily dungeons and daily missions can only be done a couple times a day. If you want to play several hours, all you can do is to do quests, and quests are very linear. You will go to this map and you clear the 5 quests in that map, and you go to the next map and clear 3 quests, and so on and so forth, and it gets pretty repetitive. You can level 4 different characters with really interesting gameplay mechanics with cool differences between them, but you're most likely going to level them the same way, and it gets boring after a while. It gets really boring. I leveled a couple characters past level 200, past level 300, and it got pretty boring. The last point I'm going to talk about is directly connected to this boredom of the linearity, which is the fact that most mobs in the game share the same skin, especially bosses. There are some bosses that you're gonna see when you're under level 10, and when you're level 330, you're going to be killing bosses that have the same appearance that a level 10 boss. And it's completely weird for me. Large stone golems, large werewolf-like creatures, large trees. The bosses are almost all the same. You have like 1,000 bosses in the game, and they have like 10 different appearances. For a grinding, killing things game, that's really bad and underwhelming. So is Tree of Savior worth playing? I think the game is worth giving a try and having some fun, and if you find that you are able to find groups or like to keep playing the game solo like I did all the way to max level, just do it. But don't put too much pressure and too much expectation on it. Tree of Savior is considered by a lot of people a failure in my opinion because of the incredible high expectations and even more incredibly terrible bad standards the game had in its release. Most people consider the game a failure because the game itself made them feel that way. I think the game nowadays is a moderately fun Korean MMO that has its flaws but its merits. It's fun, enjoy it, but don't expect too much from it. What do you think about the current state of the game? How do you think IMC can keep improving the game to perhaps one day get more people back into the game? Do you think it's possible? Leave a comment, hit me up, let me know if you thought this video was complete shit. Let me know if you think Trio Savior is complete shit. If you have recommendations of other current MMOs, just leave them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, have fun, and see ya!